YouTube seems like it's a little delayed. Okay, go live. Facebook, not seeing anything quite yet.
There's probably 30-second delay
Yeah, you're right. Okay, yep, there we go.
from streaming to those. Hi, Ryan.
I want an instant. All right, yes. Hey, Thomas. We are live now.
Be nice to have a producer that manages all that stuff, right? And just gives you the count and or points the finger and says go.
Well, you've done this a lot of times before, right? So you kind of know what that would feel like. That would feel amazing right now. So if someone out there is listening right now and wants to be our producer, man, that would be amazing. It's going to be big. I mean, I'd get in ground level if I were them.
Yeah. This is the beginning. Trying to think of that podcast I watch. Mindful. No, his name's Chris. He's got 1.8 followers on YouTube for his podcast. Modern Wisdom, I think it's called.
Okay.
And he started it 5 years ago. I believe it's 5 years. And he showed a picture of the first episode of Modern Wisdom.
Okay.
And it was three guys around a round table with a microphone in the middle. And now it's these massive productions where he travels and goes around and interviews all of the somebodies that are out there today. And
right.
It's beautifully shot, 3 cameras. They sit at the end of long tables and talk to each other, and then you've got the 2 shots of the people and then a wide shot. So you get one that's kind of on each person.
Right. Yeah.
And then a wide shot. Right. And then they cut between those, and it's very well produced.
Right. So yes, good to see someone else's humble beginnings. It's
Yeah. And then, and how did it was never his intention I think if I'm remembering the post, it was sort of like, I want to do this because I want to learn. I want to talk to people and learn about how the best way to live my life. And I don't think, if I have it correct, it was never in his mind that he would grow this into, 2 million followers on YouTube and it's his job. It's actually his,
it's become,
yeah. And he loves it, right? Like I just think what a great gig to be able to talk to people in the world and hear their stories and have a following that cares and asks questions and is interested in what you're doing. That would that'd be a lot of fun.
Well, yeah, and how much value he's brought to them, and a good reminder of just start from that place of passion. I mean, that's I think we're at, right? It's that we are passionate about each other and this conversation and being able to share with others and hopefully adding value to people's lives and being willing to start with this, grainy MVP here, minimal viable product, and just put it out there and constantly improve, right? This week's better than the last one already, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing I'm not too passionate about is the start time.
Okay. But you're an early riser, aren't you? You've got your other lives.
For the last year of my life, the last year has not been, it's been, let me rephrase that. It's been early rising, but not intentional. It's been like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. and read for a while and then go back to sleep and then not get up until 7-ish, 8-ish.
Okay. Well, this is our show. We could change it. We can change the time.
I'm working on it.
Okay. Let's have that conversation then. Okay. Well, today, we decided that you and I talk about a lot of stuff, and we could just ramble on here, but we thought we'd also bring an intention and a theme and a topic to today's conversation. And the one you and I picked that we're both, I think, quite passionate about and have developed a certain level of expertise, maybe mastery around is daily habits, commitment. First and foremost, commitment consistently and how that relates to the things that we want to do every day to be our best. Yeah.
Mm. Well, there's that. So I think there's 2 sides to this, right? Okay. There's the what am I choosing as a habit, and what am I actually subconsciously choosing as a habit? Meaning, what are the programs that are already running that I'm doing without even realizing it that maybe might be beneficial or might not be beneficial to the life I want to have, or the person I want to show up as, or the dad I want to be, or the husband I want to be, or the friend I want to be. What are the things that are running that I'm not even maybe aware of? Kind of like that idea, you know, when you drive somewhere that you've done 100 times,
Right.
and
You're on
you get
autopilot.
home and you don't even remember the last 7 minutes of the drive because it's just habitual and you're just in this running this program. Well, you know, the work I've done over the last 5 years trying to understand that is that, wow, there is programming that's in place. And, you know, how do we shift that? How do we change that? Or how do we even notice it, for example? So I think there's two parts, right? There's the habits that we want to build, and then there's maybe checking in and going, well, what's actually going on that I'm not even aware of?
Okay. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Thanks for adding to that. Okay. Yes. The habits that we do want and the habits that we maybe don't want that aren't serving us, and some of them we might not even be aware of. Yeah.
Yeah. And that would be the subconscious, right? The subconscious program that's running, that has you trigger and think things without even giving it a moment's notice. Like the idea you're walking through the forest and you see something out of the corner of your eye that's coiled up in the corner, right? And you immediately stop and look at it. And then once you can see it, it's like, oh, it's a coiled up rope or a garden hose or something. And then you're like, oh, okay. But immediately that programming is there that goes, oh, alert, what is that? And then you check it out, and now that's the kind of programming I'm talking about, that you don't really have a say in it. It just runs.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I just did a quick check just to make sure there's anyone that's saying hi. I see a few people have. I don't. Yeah, we need a producer. I'm lost in the world of Facebook and YouTube, and sorry, I'm gonna not do that right now. I'm sorry if you guys are if you're here. I'd love to chat with you. We're going to need some help being able to engage properly here. I want to be present with my good brother, Thomas. So let's continue on the conversation and we'll worry about that later.
Yeah, we can always get back to them later too.
Yeah.
If they have a question or something. So
yeah. And maybe just a comment. I don't know if we talked about this on our first show, but we're doing this live to really make it real, right? And raw. And you know, we've got a lot of stuff going on in life as busy dads, so we thought that we would simplify our lives as well and not need to edit and try and put this thing out that's perfect. Like, this is us. This is the conversation, and you know, here it is. Here we are.
Yeah. Put it out perfectly.
Yeah, just
exactly the way it is.
Just the way it is. I like your definition of perfect, right? Because it can't be another way. It is. It's perfect. Yeah. Okay, commitment, consistency, daily habits, those that we want as habits to serve us, those that we might not want or don't know about that aren't serving us. Do you have somewhere you'd like to start?
Well, I think so. I think this stems from you posting push-ups, doing push-ups,
right?
And it seems to me, I think you had a conversation with somebody, or you had an engagement with somebody around doing push-ups and getting into the habit of doing that. And there's, you know, some people that know this story. I think I've kind of been a consistent person in some things in my life. Like when I think of my drumming, being able to drum took a lot of practice. So there was a dedication and a consistency to showing up at the drum kit and playing, which allowed me to, you know, to become good at that craft. But I go back, you know, to push-ups, for example. I remember one day, and I'd read one of the habit books. It wasn't the Atomic Habits. It was the one before that. And I can't think of the author's name right now. It's yellow. I can see the book, but I can't think of his name. And he talked about keystone habits, things that they're not necessarily big habits, but there may be shifts or little changes in your life that become sort of like a keystone, like the Keystone Cops, where they're kind of running around in a circle. But this one thing becomes something that evolves into other areas without you even realizing it.
Right.
And so the story of this is I remember clearly I was sitting on the edge of my bed on a Saturday, and I was like, you know, when I'm 85, I'd like to be able to do 40 push-ups. I think that would be a good thing to be able to achieve at that age, is to consistently be able to do that. So then I thought, well, okay, there's this idea of working something backwards. And I thought, well, okay, if I want to do that, how would I start today to ensure that I could do 40 push-ups when I'm 85? And all I could think of was, well, why don't I just do them every day until I get there?
Right.
That would be one way to do it.
Right.
So that is literally the beginning of my doing 40 push-ups that I've done every day now for, I don't know, 2,700 and something days. Because it was just, I want to be able to do this when I'm 85. And so I started, I just started doing it. But here's what happened as a result. And this is the keystone thing. This is not what I expected. Was about 6 weeks into this, I remember my wife saw me. I had noticed after a shower that my upper body was starting to resemble a little bit what it looked like when I was drumming a lot, right? You know, the upper
a little firmer and
a little firmer, a little tighter. And Leslie walks by and sees me and she goes, "Hey, what's going on with you? You're looking pretty sexy these days." And then I was,
your wife?
My little brain went, "Oh, wow, check that out." And this is just from doing push-ups. And then here's the keystone thing is then it was like, well, what else could I do that would change this? And then I started to think about my eating. I started to think about getting on the trails every day with the dog and being active in that way, not going to the gym. It wasn't like I'm going to start pumping iron, and I don't go to the gym. I don't work out in that vein. I've had spats with it, but it's just the consistency of doing 40 push-ups. I brought meditation into my life. I've done that every day for, about 2,500 days now. I've done daily meditation and prayer. And so but that little thing, that one thing of 40 push-ups turned my brain into seeing, well, what else might I do that would benefit my life longer term?
Right. Okay, that's cool. I don't know if I read that one, the Keystone Habit one. I read Atomic Habits. But what I'm hearing then in your, what's worked so well for you, because, you inspired me as well with that large number of how many days you've been able to be consistent with it. And I posted that as well. You gave me that screenshot of 2,100 days. What I heard though, and I think it's also worked for me, is I heard you say you had this goal that was exciting, right? It was simple, but it was a goal. You had a vision of, I want to be able to do 40 push-ups when I'm 85, right? So you had a goal. Yeah. It sounded like I heard some excitement in your voice, and then you just, you didn't make up a story. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to start right now.
Yeah.
Because I started, again, you've been an inspiration, and same with some of the other guys in our dad group. I read Outlive last year, and similarly, I had a similar goal. I wanted to be able to take my grandkids skiing when I'm 80.
Right.
So, and I want to feel like I'm 60 when I'm 80, so that gave me a goal in the future. And in that book too, he even gives you like the math and the science to reverse engineer it to, okay, well, if you're this age today, this is what you need to be able to do to live like you're 60 when you're 80. And from that goal, and then just like you said, starting with just one habit and doing that every day. I didn't try and, do 10 at once. I heard you say you just did one, same with me. And then you just started to layer on, you could show yourself, look, I can do this every single day. And then that gave you the ability to just starting to layer on other ones. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's not only that you can do this one, is that I actually saw from something it takes me a minute and a half to do 40 push-ups. Mm-hmm. That one thing actually caused a shift in not only how I saw myself, but, my wife reinforced it, right? Her comment was just like, my brain just went, what? From that? Like, that's nothing. I haven't done, I'm not going to the gym. I'm not spending an hour and a half every day trying to work out. I just am doing 40 push-ups, and a significant change has happened. And wow, well, what else could I do? And like, just even then looking at my eating, right? Like, that's what it triggers. Like, what if I eliminated this or ate more of this? What would that do? How would my health change, and I'm not making big changes, just little tiny ones. I kind of think of it like this, Ryan. Like this is how my brain sort of works on it. It's like if you had a clock and you were looking at the hand straight up, and that's the path you're on right now, right? That's the direction you're walking. You're going forward just like a clock. Well, just move that hand just a little bit over, right? Just like at the 1 minute, and now walk a straight line. And it starts out together, but over the course of time, it widens and widens. And sooner or later, you're a person you don't even recognize in some capacity from that small change as you keep it in place.
Yeah, your whole trajectory, it seems really small in the moment, that one minute, 1 degree shift, but over time, you end up in a very different place just with that one change. Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you're in a better place or a worse place, because you could make a small change like becoming addicted to something that's not healthy.
Go the other way, yeah.
And it would go the other way, right? But it's fascinated me when I thought about it, just that little tiny step, what a difference I am now from where I might have been had I not done that. And I have no idea what it would have looked like had I not done that, because this is what I'm doing, right? So, but yeah, it fascinates me, that kind of stuff.
And okay, very cool. Thank you for sharing that. And I think there's something interesting about it being push-ups, not just any habit. Like maybe it's a guy thing. I don't know, but there's that. So yes, there was. So I started posting my push-ups just as, I'm starting to put more content on Instagram as an experiment. Like what's of value to other people? What do people like totally dismiss? What do people engage with? And is it interesting? Is it helpful? And it seems like, I did some push-ups. I did some push-ups with my daughter on my back. That was one of the most engaging posts I did. I was doing 30 because my daughter said, you should do 30 in the morning and 30 at night, Dad. That would be even better. So I was like, okay, fine. I considered that. So then someone called me out and was like, you should do 40 clean. Give me 40. Is not this a friend of mine. Give me 40 clean. I was like, okay, fine. So I recorded the next day 40 clean, and then I tagged him. I'm like, okay, what do you got now? And so and it was cool. He sent me a private message with him doing 27 and then 13 to get to 40. Then the next day he did 40. Like it took him 2 days to get to 40. And they weren't entirely clean, but anyways, I won't call them up, but they were awesome.
Let's not judge them.
No, they were awesome. And then he sent me an article from Harvard Medical School where they did a study. I mean, again, studies some of these are weird, but I'll just, it seemed interesting that they took a study of men, and those who could do, only 10 push-ups or something had this sort of health outcome in their life. The guys who could do 40, and they actually called out that number, the guys who could do 40 push-ups had, dramatically better health outcomes in their life. So I don't know, maybe there's something interesting about doing 40 push-ups.
Yeah. Well, so what's interesting about that is after I started doing that, probably, 6 months in, I actually read up on push-ups, and the magic number was 40.
Okay.
And I forget what study that came from, but there's a magic number of 40 push-ups that not only, I don't think they approached it from how longevity or anything of that, but what it actually does to your core muscles and your upper body muscles. Like there's anything 40 and above has a significant benefit. And below that might not, but 40 seemed to be the magic number. And I have no idea why I decided 40 push-ups. Maybe I had read I don't think I read that article first. It seems to me that article came after I had decided to do 40.
Well, that's really, yeah. And I was doing 40, and then I changed it just to experiment with what my daughter's. Anyway, so yeah, I thought it'd be cool if there's any guys that want to do like a challenge, like we're doing them. I know my other friend now is doing them. So maybe like a 40 push-ups for 40 days, to get that habit going. Because I do think that you hit a tipping point. I think I heard you say, like, you got to a point where like, I'm starting to feel the benefits, and some other people are noticing. I think it's some people say 30 days, whatever, but I thought 40 push-ups for 40 days, we could do a bit of a challenge here.
Yeah. Well, I actually said that it was about 6 weeks later.
6 weeks. Okay. Yeah.
Which is 42 days.
Okay.
That I noticed, and my wife noticed.
Yeah.
And I only just realized that now, that it was 40 days. It was about 40 days later that a change had been noticeable enough that I felt a little different.
Okay.
I probably stood up a little straighter.
Totally. I am. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, cause there's core muscle work going on, right?
True.
There's stuff going on that you don't realize that you're doing with 40 push-ups, but anyhow, it's fascinating. And I think it's great. And I don't need to see somebody do 40 push-ups, but if they want to post and share, hey, I did my 40 today, I'm totally supportive of that. That would be awesome.
Okay, I'll keep posting. I'll be the guy if there's no one else. But if other guys want to join, from what we've experienced, it can lead to many great things. Yeah.
Yeah, but it goes back to let's not make this about 40 push-ups as much as the habit.
Yes.
Creating habits, choices in our lives that benefit us, that excite us, that get us thinking I can do something, or I can accomplish something, or look at that change and seeing the benefit from it, and then getting excited about, well, if that is doing this, what else might I do?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, so help me understand also, like, how do you think you've been so successful at keeping it going? Because, for me, sometimes in the morning things can get, it's not the same morning every time, right? Like sometimes, the morning starts later. Sometimes my youngest gets up and it's not the same morning. I don't have it perfectly programmed. So things, can be a little bit in flow, and sometimes I don't do them in the same order. So help me understand, because you haven't missed a day in 2,100 days.
2,700.
2,700, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. In 2,700.
Don't shortchange me, man.
Sorry. Yeah. I can see the number, but I missed it. I thought it was a one in my mind, honestly. That's only 2 years, right? What is 2,700? How many years is that?
I think I'm approaching 7 years or 8 years. I forget which one.
Okay.
I did the math on it a little while ago, so.
Okay, so 8 years of push-ups every single day, and you've traveled and you've got kids and, life's, happening. So help me understand what's helped you be that consistent.
So it's actually been harder this last year when my sleep has not been consistent. So the way it used to look is I used to get up at 5:30 on average almost every day, and I was up for the day at that point. So my routine was very simple. At that point, I know I'm getting up 5:30. I had a little voice in my head that said exactly what you said earlier. Give me 40. It was like, shooter, give me 40 now. Drop and give me 40, right? And I would literally get out of bed, and the first thing I did was hit the floor and do 40 without even I would be done them, and I wasn't even awake yet. So it was super easy to get done because it was just the first thing I did upon getting out of bed. So they're just done. Okay, and then I have a little app called Productive, I think it is.
Yeah.
And I found it at that exact time. It was free back then. It's no longer free, but it was free then. And I loaded it on my phone, and it gave you 5 things that you could track. So one of them for me was push-ups, and then I would just check that off. It was my little victory, was like done, bang. I get a little ding from it, and it was like, great, that's in the books, right? I'm already done that. And that was all I needed for motivation. The last year where my sleep has been, where I've been getting up at like 3 and reading and then falling back asleep, I'm not doing the 40 as soon as I wake up like I used to. So it's been a little bit more, it's not as clean as I would like it to be. It's still every day, and it's when I get up the second time that I do them.
Okay.
Right. So I'd like to work on that. So that's a little thing for me to be. I'm aware of that. For me, I'd like to shift that a little bit if I can. I don't stress out about it though. But so it's just now I'm just in the habit of it, and I want that check mark every day. Like I can look at that Productive app and see that every day that I go back, every month, every one of those days is a green circle. It's done. And now I don't want to lose it. I'm to the point now where it's like, I'm not missing a day. Are you kidding? Like, start over? No, I'm not starting over.
So I've heard, so from Atomic Habits, which I think you'd recommend that book too. Yeah. You've got a trigger. The Keystone was the one before it. Yeah.
It
really
Power
started
of Habit, I think. I think it is Drucker, I think is his name. I'm trying. Oh man.
Okay.
Look it up. We had a
Okay,
producer.
well, someone could put it on screen or post the link or whatever. Okay, so that's what you started, but we both read Atomic Habits too, right? So I think
Yes.
that's been helpful in this context where you've got a trigger, which is for you was waking up.
Yeah.
And then you've inserted the habit. And then one of your rewards, it sounds like, was seeing this progress on the app, right? And I remember this from Jerry Seinfeld. He really liked the don't break the chain model, which was, he would do his, I think it was writing or joke telling every single day. And I think he manually did it on a calendar, but it was don't break the chain. Like after you get that streak going, you don't want to break it, like you said, right? You can see all of that green.
Yep.
And you're like, wow, I don't want to break the chain.
I'm not stopping now. Yeah. It's the power of habit. I have to know because I just can't. And it's Charles Duhigg.
Okay.
The Power of Habit was the first habit book I read. Atomic Habits came out after, but that was the first one I read. And
okay. Seems like it's working.
Yeah. There was a lot of good science in there. I mean, it was very similar, but there was science study around it. And he also talked about, if I remember correctly, was the habits that you're doing that you're not even aware that are habits. And that's the other place to look at, like, as we started this conversation is, what is it I want to do, but what are the things also that I'm doing that I'm not even aware of that aren't supporting the kind of life I might envision for myself, right?
Sure. Well, let's get to that, and so we have some time. We can end on that one, and just to talk some more about just the daily habits we do want. Was there any other, like, Atomic Habits? The other piece of it is atomic, meaning like starting small. Like I remember he's like, if you want to start running, make it easy to start. Don't try and go for this big 20K run out of the gates. Like start by putting your shoes at the door every day, and that's it. Just get that as your habit. Second time, if you build that as a habit, then put them on and like go out the door, and then get that as a habit. And you know what I mean?
Yeah. Look at New Year's resolution, right?
Right.
New Year's resolutions are, how many people put up a New Year's resolution where they're going to get in shape? And so New Year's comes and they get a gym membership and they start going 3 or 4 times a week for an hour and a half at a time. And by the third week, they've dropped it all because it's too much. Right. It's like, it's such an enormous change in their life. The brain actually can't take it.
Right.
Very few continue. They drop it. Right. So, if you start with something small, and then, like, if we go back to the story, right? I just was doing push-ups. It wasn't any big deal.
Yeah, it takes whatever you said, a minute and a half. Yeah. You can do it anywhere you want.
Right. You can just drop and do 40 anywhere. Exactly. Yeah. There was no big shift in my life other than the time and the effort to do 40. And then I saw a difference. And that was what inspired, like, oh, wow, if that could do that, what might other things do?
Do you think, because in the habit loop, there's trigger, habit, reward is my understanding of it. Do you think that outcome that, like, you started to notice, other people started to notice, do you think that was your reward? Was there something else? Do you think that's part of the reward loop for you?
Well, I think there was so there was, I noticed.
Yeah.
I just noticed, and I was like, I look better. I was a little prouder of myself, right? So there was some personal pride that came in for sure. Obviously, my wife saying, "Hey, what's going on with you, mister?" Woo-woo. Yeah. That was nice to hear from, somebody I love and appreciate in my life. And then the gamifying of it became a challenge to myself. Right. How could I do this every day now? Like, what would imagine? Like, I started to imagine, can you imagine if I get to, and that, I think I did the math on it too, was like, I needed to do it for another 11,000 something days or whatever it was. Like, it was mind boggling numbers of doing this every day for that many. And man, if I get there, like, what a
achievement for yourself.
Yeah, like, I don't care what anybody else thinks about it. For me, it would be like, man, I set out however many years ago to do 40 push-ups every day, and now I've arrived at that timeline. I'll go have a coffee. I don't know, maybe a little piece of cake.
Set to celebrate. Yeah. Well, and I think that's in the end that, hey, the earlier you start, the bigger your high score can be, right? In terms of days consistent.
Yeah.
So who's ever out there that's a little younger than us, and I think as dads, I think it's important. I think you and I, we do a lot for others. We do a lot for our families, our wives, our kids, our employees, our businesses, our friends, our community, our church. I think it's important to have these things that we do for ourselves. Yeah, I know that's what I've made non-negotiable is for myself. So it's not many things, but enough things that I feel like if I do those things every day, I feel like today's a win. I did these things for me that allows me to show up as a better version of me for others. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it was Suki, that our friend Suki, that had said also a long time ago in our group that win the first part of your day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So my habits in the morning that I have, when I check that box off, I've already won.
Right.
Now life's going to life me, stuff's going to come at me, and I'm going to have to cope with whatever shows up or deal with whatever shows up, or, enjoy whatever shows up, right? Whatever emotion I'm going to have to it. But the first part of my day, I've actually set up for me to win and have those things done. And it's like, yep, check. Prayer, meditation, check. Push-ups, check. Glass of water, whatever it is, whatever those check boxes are, that they don't have to be big things, but you check them off, and you have now in your own brain, you've set yourself up like some confidence in yourself. I do things, I get things done.
Right.
I can rely on myself. I can count on myself to show up.
Right. Commitment, right, is one of the words we used at the beginning, where I've committed to doing this for myself, and now I'm going to show myself that I can do this every day. So being able to honor that commitment to ourselves, I think is huge, right? Because then that translates into, like you're saying, well, if I can do that every day, and I said I would, and I did it, and look, I'm doing it. Now, what else could I do? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I used to smoke many, many years ago.
Yeah.
I wasn't checking off a list anytime that, hey, got that done.
Right.
First cigarette of the day done.
Right.
Like, I'm not knocking smoking. I did it for, a number of years, but was it a healthy thing for me?
Right.
Probably not. Right. Like
right.
The science seems to think that maybe that's not a good thing for me for longevity and reaching 85.
You're kind of unticking boxes at the end of the life. Yeah. Right. Well, and I use, I checked out a bunch of those apps. Me, I like to find the one that I like the best. So I Habit Now is one I like, because I can customize it to suit my habits, daily, weekly. But Jerry Seinfeld used a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that he had a grid on and did an X on. You know what I mean? Like whatever works.
Yeah, whatever works, exactly. And tracking, I think, is good, because then you remember it.
Yeah.
It's,
you can't make it up to yourself.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I think I did it.
Yeah.
And I think also, just the last couple things on this. It's amazing how much you can talk about push-ups, but what it actually represents, right, in someone's life. That just totally lost it.
It just went bye-bye.
Well, let me ask you a different question then. Is when it gets hard, has it gotten hard? Has there been times like, oh my God, I just about missed it? Like, how do you?
No.
Are there things that are going to come up? Yeah.
It hasn't gotten hard, but because my belief that we're meaning-making machines.
Sure.
Right. We just make meaning out of everything. So I'm making this 40 push-ups mean something to me, and I got it. I'm clear on that. There's been a few moments where I've thought, oh, this is just ridiculous. Like, who cares? Like,
it gets up in here. Okay.
Yeah. So I went, however many days in a row, big deal. Like, do I really need to do these? Like, I've had that conversation with myself.
Okay.
Probably more than 5 times I've had that conversation with myself. Like, really, DeShooter, what are you doing? It's no big deal. Nobody cares. It's not going to make a difference in the grand scheme of things. I don't have to do this every day like it's a ritual of some kind. But I just chased that thought away. There's a song, I used to be in a band, right? And Dave Seymour, our main vocalist, but our main songwriter, especially lyricist, and we all sort of put in our 2 bits in music. But There's a song we have, the train song, and one of my favorite lines from that song is, "But I chased that thought away before it had time to lay roots in my brain."
Mm.
And
Right.
sometimes that's what it feels like I need to do. I don't know about anybody else out there. I don't know about you, but sometimes there's thoughts that come into my head, and I realize I need to chase that thought away
Right.
before it has time to lay some roots, right? And
Right.
so that's one of those, like, I don't really need to do this. This is stupid. And it's like, no, I'm not gonna, let's just put that aside. We're not gonna stay in that world. Just chase it out.
Well, and I feel like that's part of the practice. I mean, maybe you've developed that competency through meditation, right? Because I know that's the thing, is we're going to have these thoughts. Like, it's not about not having them. Like, they're going to come up. Like, potentially you're going to have some negative thoughts, some thoughts you're like, wow, where did that come from? I think it's the important, and I know that comes up in meditation, is letting them kind of flow by, like noticing them, go, huh, that's interesting, wonder where that came from, but not allowing it. Like, I kind of see it as like these seeds from like the dandelions when you blow, like they're kind of floating by and you're like, huh, that's an interesting one, but not letting it drop, grab hold of the soil, start growing.
Yeah, I like that analogy, because they're really looking for something to grab onto,
Right.
So that they can lay their roots, right? They can start their process. And so I appreciate Dave had a number of one-liners throughout the songs where he had these really clever little ways of saying things. One of the others, not that this is about Dave, but one of the others was, "I take everything I don't leave behind when I go away." And I just love the phrasing of that. It's like, it's like, duh.
Right. I had to think about it a little bit. Yeah.
But anyhow, I think we can, the game for me is really mastery of myself.
Right.
It's not about mastering anything out there as much as it is about figuring this out,
this guy out. Yeah.
And having purpose within.
Yeah. I remember what I was going to say before. I think one last thing on this is picking. So you wanted to be able to do this. You wanted to have a habit that you could do until you're 85. And similarly, I wanted to, be, young, vibrant, and actually get a little younger, but be 60 when I'm 80. And in order to do that, with lives that we live, on the road and on our motorbikes and traveling and kids and conferences and all this kind of stuff, I feel like you need to have, in my opinion, habits that you can sustain wherever you are. Like, it's not going to work if my habit is, I don't know, an example here, like, even just going to the gym, that's not always going to be accessible to me, potentially if I'm traveling, or I don't know, you could probably think of a fancy habit that's hard to maintain, maybe for the next, several decades. But it was something like push-ups, something like drinking water, meditating, journaling. If I think of the ones that I know you have and that are on my list, they're things that, like I was just in Japan. I posted videos of me doing push-ups in the I forgot to do it because we had scrambled out the door to get to the train. I'm doing them someone was like, that's gross. Like, how many people walk on that floor? But I was doing my push-ups in the train station because it's a habit that you can do wherever you are.
Yeah.
So I guess my point was, it's important to pick, I think, habits that will allow you to be successful for that duration. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that can have something to do. I still think it's the little things that add up to the big things. I don't even know that it's you don't need to make it complicated.
Right.
Like if you're, I would love to develop the habit of journaling. I'm really inconsistent with it. I take a lot of notes from things I read. Like this morning, I've already added to a page of notes that I've been working on around a particular topic. So I take a lot of notes, but that's not the same as journaling my thoughts.
Sure.
Right. And so I would like to develop that habit, and somehow it doesn't stick with me. I haven't done it in a way that becomes meaningful for me enough that I do it on a consistent basis.
Right. Well, going back to our system that's worked for push-ups, do you have a vision, a goal with it, like you did with your push-ups? Like, I want to have.
No.
Okay.
No, I have a book I want to write. I just
Yeah.
haven't really decided on what that is, and
Okay.
maybe when that inspiration really
Right.
takes root, when that timing is like, now it's time to do this,
Mm-hmm.
that'll change. That the focus will be there, because I know I've had that before, right? As a musician, I've done that. As I've written a book previously, I've had that discipline, but maybe it just hasn't landed as a thing that I'm
Yeah.
feeling called to do.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah. And I heard it in the book Essentialism, which I really, really enjoyed coming into this year. I think I've shared that with you too.
mhm.
And one of the things that stuck with me from in what he did, like, it was this idea of being a journaling to be the journalist of your own life. So writing down your thoughts, right? Writing down, that's interesting today. Like being the journalist, and then going back and looking at them and kind of just trying to take, tell this, what would you call a journalist call it? Like, see the trend or the story, like kind of start to see the pattern of your own life. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then I did set an atomic habit of just one sentence every day at minimum. So in my app, it reminds me, it says greater than one sentence per day journal. And that one I can, like, last night I was going to bed. I was like, oh no, I forgot journaling today. It was 11 at night, and I quickly ran downstairs, wrote one line, and then it turned into probably 3 or 4.
Right.
Because stuff started to come out. But I did create an atomic habit, and I have struggled with journaling in the past, and so far that's 4 months, consistently.
Wow. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. That's great.
But that's the power of an atomic habit with a goal and a meaning. I gave it, but I hear what you're saying too. You haven't yet decided, to give it a big meaning. I gave it importance. I gave it a meaning, and it works out.
Yeah. So how much time do we have?
So we got less than 20 minutes.
Okay.
You want to flip to? Yeah.
We should flip to maybe the habits we don't want.
Yeah.
The trigger points. So, I can say, for me, if I'm, being open and sharing, is that, there are ways of being that are habitual for me, trigger points where I might get mad at I might have a disagreement with my wife or my kids or people that are close to me. They trigger me in a certain way, and I respond in a certain way, and I don't like the way I respond.
Okay.
Right. And that's a habit. That's a habit that has developed in me over time, to respond in a certain way. It's my go-to, whether it's I stop talking, right? I either clam up,
shut down. Yeah, I know that one.
Shut down, or I just, in my mind go, oh, they're just idiots. What do they know? That's an easy
You're writing it off as it's them, not me.
Yeah. Right. So it's noticing those things about ourselves that we can take ownership of, and start going, hey, what if I were to actually be more open in those moments? What if I were to not have that, again, chase that thought away before it has time to lay roots? And those are other areas that, again, small changes, hard changes to make, because a lot of these maybe come from our childhood. They've been inbred from grandparents, parents,
generational,
mentors, generational, where
societal,
we're doing things in a way that we're not even aware that it's actually just a habit, and it's not real. It's made up. And now can we, just like the push-ups is made up. Sure. It's just an idea that I've decided to do. Well, what are things that I can look at that maybe, like my smoking was a habit. Right. An addiction, it was actually up to the point of an addiction. And how can I take that and not do that anymore? And the first thing is always noticing, right? You have to see that that's actually alive in you, and that you've got this thing, that is working on you that you're not even aware of. And what if you did become aware, and what if you could work on it to shift it? What would that then look like? How would your in this example, how would your relationships change?
Right. So similarly, it is a habit, as you're saying. You are potentially very consistent with it. Like you said with your smoking, potentially you could get to a place where you're very committed to it. And like, no, this is the way I am. This is the way it is. You know what I mean? You could be very committed to this habit. But ultimately what I'm hearing is like getting to that point, just the starting point of noticing, and maybe asking yourself, like, is this is this really what I want? Like, is this how I want to be? Is this how I want to show up? Is this how I want to act? Is this the kind of, engagement interaction I want to have with others?
Yeah. So, and here's an example. So if we bring this back to dads, being a dad, I want to preface this with, I had a great dad. Like, what an example for me as a father. And were there things that I wouldn't do the same way? Absolutely. There are things that I wouldn't do the same way. And I've made those choices. But what happened was I actually saw that I was doing something the way my dad did it.
Okay.
And I don't profess to that. So an easy example was, in my house, you had to go to church on Sunday. That was it. There was no matter what age you were, if you lived in the home, you went to church on Sunday. Well, I haven't instilled that rule on my children.
Right.
When they were younger, and both Leslie and I were going to our spiritual center on a Sunday, we weren't leaving them home alone. So in that case, they had to come. But as soon as they got to the age where we could trust them to be home on their own for an hour and a half or whatever it was, they've had the choice of whether they wanted to be with us or not. And that was something we decided together as parents, that, are we going to allow them to make the choice for themselves? And that's a different thing than what was done in my house. Right. Because I just didn't want to indoctrinate them into my beliefs necessarily till they were ready for it. If they want it, it's open to them. If they don't, I'm not going to force them. And that's just my own opinion. It's not, It's not open for, discussion on that. It was just how we felt, that we were like, no, we're not going to follow that rule. But it would have been easy for me to instill that, because that's what I saw. That's what my parents were put under in the house that they lived in. And they were doing the same thing with their kids, and I could have continued the same thing. But I looked at that and went, no, that's something I'm not wanting to continue. Right.
Yeah, the easy way would be, well, that's what I did. That's what my parents did. That's what people do. That's just what we're going to do, Yeah. You could just continue that habit and not even question it, right?
Yeah. And it was never a thought of good or bad. It was just that, nope, that's something I'm actually not going to take on. I'm gonna drop that one off. Right. That I'm okay with letting that one go. That when they're old enough to be home on their own and manage themselves, then they're probably old enough to know whether they want to come with us to every event we go to.
Right. And do you think that your parents gave you that there was or is this something you've taken on, or is it also come from your parents in terms of like giving you that space to choose for yourself, like empowering you to make some of these decisions? Did that come early on, or is that something you've developed later on in life?
I think it's a bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
There was
certain things, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there was a time when my dad and I had a good relationship with my dad, and I think I was in grade 9 or 10. I don't remember. And we were on the way to a hockey game. I was playing hockey then. And he asks me out of the blue in the car, he says, hey, I got a serious question for you, something to that effect. Are you smoking marijuana? What's his question?
Just comes right out. Yeah.
Just comes right out. And I thought in that moment, if he's asking, he knows. There's he's not just asking randomly. And I didn't like to lie to my dad. So I admitted that I was at that time. I had been. And he said his answer was something like this, is what my memory tells me, was something to the effect of, he let me know that it's probably not good for me. Like long-term health-wise, this is probably not a good choice. And it could lead to other problems in my life. My dad was an AA, so he had been dry for the last 40 years of his life or something to that effect. But so we had a conversation around that, and then he said to me, this was the thing about it, is he said, I can't tell you what to do all the time, and I'm not going to be with you all the time. And certainly don't stop doing this for me. Stop doing it for yourself. And then we never talked about it again. That was it. That was the conversation. There was no anger. There was no yelling at me. There was no, you're stupid. There was no calling me down. It was a conversation with my dad about somebody who cared about me enough to speak his truth and also let it be known that it's actually my choice.
Right.
And maybe that's where that stems from, is that teaching right there. Cause I've never forgotten that. I can see the car we're in. I can see the street we're driving down. That moment he asked, it's all, it's a cloudy vision, but I can see it because it had a deep impact on me to have that relationship with my dad.
Wow. And you shared, and you've shared this story with me before, so I can appreciate it's memorable. And I think it's hugely important, right? Because we want the best for our kids. And so sometimes we're like, oh, this is what you should do. And you really want them to do a certain thing, a certain way, because that's what we think. And I think, I don't know if this is just a dad thing or a parent thing or whatever, but I know as a man, as a father, if I go back maybe to like my caveman theories, we would go out, and hunt and forage. And if we don't come back, the village can still keep going. So the village, the kids, like they need to be empowered to be able to lead their own lives, because there's a chance that we're not going to be around. So pretty early on, I don't know what that age is exactly, but I do that with my kids too. And I think I've learned this from you because your kids are older, is starting to get them to realize that this is their life, that they need to lead and take charge of and be responsible for certain things and different things at different times as they get older, but making sure that that's a belief that they have, and then I guess that I have, and I know that I've heard this in you as well, so that they start to realize like, yeah, I gotta make these decisions for me. My parents aren't going to do it for me.
Right. But so inside of that though, there was also some very, very clear things. Like I wasn't to bring drugs into the house.
Right. He set some boundaries for, look, this is what
He was a smart enough man to know that when I'm not home and I'm out doing whatever I'm doing, I'm going to be out doing whatever I'm going to be doing.
Sure. Because that's your life. Yeah.
That he can't be with me all the time is what he said. And don't do this for me, do this for yourself. But inside of that, there were rules in the house about how I conducted myself. Sure. I was going to live there. There were things that were non-negotiables in living in that home. And if I didn't like them, then, as soon as I could leave, that was my option. Right. It was,
right. But he's establishing standards, like, because this is now, and this is his life in the house, that he's like, look, this is my standard. These are my values. Yeah. And
that's which is where his rule around going to church on Sunday came from. Right. In his world, that is a value that is not negotiable in this house. You live under the rule of this house. That's one of them. Yeah. End of story. We're not even ever going to discuss it.
Right. Well, and I think, I just want to shout out, I think that's another, we have a lot in common, and I'll say that as well. I had an amazing father, and I still do. And just a shout out to my dad. And he gave me an example of a way of being, like a habit of how to be in the world. He didn't really tell me, a lot, like, this is how to be, son. He just did it. He just was it. And and I still appreciate even more and more as I get on. I'm like, and I get to an age that I remember him being, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is how he was. But that was a habit that he had built, whether he did even consciously or not. But just that way of being, I really appreciate, even more so every day I get older.
Yeah. Well, the kids are always watching, right? Right. So you can tell them whatever you want, but how you truly act is what they see.
And that's a habit every day, how you show up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So they're watching, and that speaks the loudest volume to them is, saying one thing and doing another. They're going to notice that. They're not idiots.
Yeah.
I mean, my truth about kids is that they're, from day one, they're trying to figure out how to manipulate me. That's they're humans, man. How do I get my way? This is what I need. This is what I really need to know. What's going to get me the thing that I want? And that's the place they're operating from.
Yeah. My wife has a good saying that she said a lot over the years: preach all the time, sometimes even with words.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's really good. I've never heard that before. I like that.
Yeah, it stuck with me. And that's what my dad did. Yeah, he didn't talk a lot, but he showed me a lot.
Yeah.
So to maybe wrap up this piece on those habits that we can start to become aware of that aren't serving us. So I heard the key is noticing.
Yeah,
it's the key start of it. Yeah,
with noticing. You got to notice. You know, it's like if you have a lot of complaints about people, they're this, they're that, da 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 da. That
about all of them. Yes,
all of them. Just know who's in every one of those relationships.
What's the common pattern there? Yeah,
denominator. Right. So if there's a lot of that going on, there's a good place to start, and that's to start with, well, what am I making all of this about? Who am I?
Right. So if you're noticing that, yes, you're projecting a lot onto others. Okay, that's a good place to start in terms of like, I wonder, and I think a big power, like a powerful force in that is just curiosity in terms of just, how to start, right? Like, and good questions, right? Like, I wonder why all of them, do this a certain way that I'm upset. Like, why am I so upset about all of this? What could that be about? Is that really all about them, or is there something here for me? So that curiosity, that noticing, and I guess it's could it be a feeling like just I'm not feeling good about this? Is using that as a compass point, like
of course, yeah.
I'm triggered. Well, you said before, like I'm triggered. Okay, well, why am I triggered? Like what's going on here? Again, not why are they triggering me? Why am I triggered about this situation? Yeah.
Yeah. What is it about this that has me feel this way?
Right.
Why is this the feeling I'm left with?
Right. Because it's empowering at least if you put it in the context of like, I can't, you can't change them. Like they're just going to be the way they are, right? The person who cuts you off or whatever, like, what are you going to do? Like, really, you're going to pull them over, have a little chat with them, somehow change their whole belief system, and then probably not, especially if it keeps happening. So you're triggered. I think an empowering place to go is, what is it about? And then a good question, right? What is it about this situation? Why is them being whoever they are, driving the way they want to drive? Why am I so triggered by that? And then being able to go in and do a little bit of self-inspection is a powerful place to start. Yeah.
Yeah. So in my view, it's the best place to start. Because then we can make choices from there, right? We can choose different things, and it may be the choice is to not be a part of that friendship anymore, or to not work at that place anymore, or to not, engage in those conversations anymore. Like, I made a decision not to watch the news. I have almost no daily news in my life. Why? Because I don't enjoy it. It doesn't make me feel good about the state of the world at times, and I don't want that feeling. So it's not that I want to ignore what's going on. I just don't want to feel those feelings from it. I want happy feelings in my life.
Yeah, especially when you get to a place where you do notice what's going on. Like it's a lot of fear-based stuff to get your attention, so they can show you ads. So when you know that and you have that lens, you can choose. Like I can watch it and I kind of know what's going on, but it also doesn't sit well with me that there's this like bombardment of every micro thing that's happening around the world that's negative. So then you can make that powerful choice. Like, no, I'm not going to watch that.
Yeah, I don't want that going into my brain all the time.
No.
Right? It's just a nonstop attack.
There's better things to put our time to. Okay, well, we got probably just less than 2 minutes here. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah
This is probably better than the first one. Better than the one that
are we gonna compare?
Well, I think there's progress. I like to we've got 2 now on the streak.
We had a little better format today.
Yeah. Actually, we don't have a streak. We have one this streak. We did. Maybe not everyone knows, but we did one last week when I was in Kyoto, and the internet is apparently really bad there, and the show is not something that we would like to put out in the world. And
you were also very tired, and
I was. Yes, the time and sleep deprived. I mean, I was only there for 3 days. So yes, this is our streak of 1. We have 2 shows. And we will work on the consistency. We are committed, and the tech. We got to work on the tech and get our goods at rest. And please let us know. Please give us feedback. We both have, I think, great growth mindsets. We want to learn. We want to improve. So give us some feedback. We'll be here next week. We'll share the theme. We're going to get this on more channels, Any closing remarks? The shooter.
Well, I just appreciate these conversations with you. That would be my closing remark, is that, and I'd like to try to get it to be a little like, the impetus of this was that we, for the last 3 years, we've spoken almost every Friday, right? And we have conversations that go around all sorts of things in our personal lives of what we're dealing with, and we've become a person that each one of us can lean on to a certain extent, and so the more natural this could be about just what's going on in our lives and talking about it, I don't know whether that would be good or not, because who would really care? I mean, I care. Well, you care, but does anybody else give a?
We'll see. We'll put it out there, and people let us know. Okay, we're at 7. Thank you, brother. I really appreciate it too. Appreciate you. Yeah, appreciate whoever is taking the time to listen to us. I hope that we've been able to offer some value, stuff that's working for us. And with that, we'll see you next week. Huge love. Peace.